Alright guys, today we're finally doing it. We're taking a look at the new Oculus Rift S PCVR headset that now replaces the original Rift. And this is it right here. And we're going to take a deep dive into everything that's changed on here. If it's worth it for people who have a current Rift to upgrade to this one. And if VR newcomers should purchase this one and not go seek out the original Rift. We're going to talk all about that in this video. And let's see if it's worth our time. Let's go ahead and check it out.
Gaming tech, eating brekkie is the gaming tech. Going for a recce is the gaming tech. Gaming techie is the gaming tech. Gaming techie.
Alright guys, so here we are with the Oculus Rift S review. I have the Oculus Rift S right here next to me, and the two controllers that it comes with. I've been using this thing obviously since the day it got released. I walked into Best Buy and got my pre-order and been using this ever since, all week long, putting it through its paces. I did have the original Rift when it came out. I since have gotten rid of it, if that's anything to tell you at the start of this review. I did get rid of it, but I didn't have it, so I have a lot that I can tell you guys as far as comparisons with the original Rift and these. So let's dive right into it. Let's start with comfort on this thing. So comfort on this thing, you can see that they obviously went with a different design than what the Rift used to look like. This is now a halo strap, very close to what the PSVR was like. And it obviously opens on the back. You just twist this out like this, and then you just close it like that, and you do this top strap, and that's it. You literally, it's really simple to put on and off for people. I actually demoed this to a bunch of my family members yesterday and a couple of my friends. And, you know, it's very easy to put in and out. They had no issues with it. They got it in there. They got it out. No one complained about comfort or anything like that. I think the headset is more comfortable than I had with the original Rift, including with people who wear glasses. And I was excited to get in there and actually see that it actually felt better and easier on my head and easier to put on than I did when I had the original Rift. So I find this way more comfortable, way easier. I could put it on. It's easier to me, in my opinion, than straps, of just putting it on and just tightening the back and then I go. Because once you set the top strap, if you're not demoing this to people every day, once you set the top strap to yourself, you're good to go the next time you get in. Because obviously you're not going to move the top strap. You'll just put it right back in, and then, you untap the thing a little bit on the back, put it in, tap it back, and you're good to go. And no other straps to adjust, so it's very easy to come in and out of. As far as the comfort, how comfortable it is. So I do like the Halo design better than what the original Rift did, but not like, it's not a deal breaker either way for me. I just think that this is more comfortable, so if I had a choice, I would go with this one. And I do have the PSVR as well, so I knew that this was going to be comfortable just based on the fact that they're very similarly designed. Of course, this being made in partnership with Lenovo and Oculus. This wasn't completely designed by Oculus. This time around, it was in partnership with Lenovo, and obviously Lenovo with Windows MR headsets did a similar design with already, so they obviously, had their roots into the Halo strap, as you will, already. Moving down to the hardware itself, and how simple it is to set up, which is what Oculus's big message is with this thing, is that now you need one cable. You plug in this, you have a USB cable, and you have a DisplayPort cable. It also comes with a mini DisplayPort cable on the box if you need to USB-C. If you want to use an adapter for that, you can do that if you want. So that's obviously a difference to what the old Rift used to be, where it used to connect to HDMI. So keep in mind, if you have a laptop, as far as I know, there hasn't been anything that you can do as far as getting an adapter to HDMI. There's not really any adapters that will fully support the bandwidth needed for this. So if your laptop does not have USB-C or DisplayPort, which I don't know any laptops that have DisplayPort that I can think of, but it does work with USB-C, but not HDMI. So just something to keep in mind with this headset. But you plug these two cables into your computer, and you're off and you're done. There's literally nothing else to do. The camera is obviously the biggest change on this unit, where there's now 5 cameras on here, one here, one on the top, and 2 here on the bottom to point towards the bottom to look at what you're doing. This is obviously very different than what the old Rift used to look like, and it's a slight big difference in the Quest, which I did review. You can check out the review on that now, which has also been posted. But on the Oculus Quest, they went with 4 cameras right here in the front and in the corners, and on this one they went with the 5 camera setup, so you get a little bit more tracking volume on this one than the Quest, with there being a camera on top when you're doing something like this. So obviously that's a very big deal, because now there's no cameras to set up, and I had a 4 camera setup in this room before. The tracking was obviously flawless most of the time. There was always those couple of hitches sometimes when you have a 4 camera setup. But 99% of the time, it was, perfect, and I didn't have any issues with it. I took those 4 cameras down. I sold my original Rift. I'm now using this. This makes it so much easier. When people come over, when I had people come over, and it was always really annoying because I have bar seats and stuff back there to be like, hey, you know, you can't sit there because the cameras, you're going to block their view of the camera, blah, blah, blah. You couldn't have anybody standing there. Now, technically, there's a little bit of leeway. If you have people right there, it's not really a big deal as long as they're not in the vicinity of a person and they're not going to get whacked. But there's no cameras. The cameras are built into here, so there's nothing to worry about with that stuff. So even easier for me to show VR here and not have any cameras set up. I don't have to have them on my computer, freeze up all those USB ports. So this is definitely what the future is as far as inside-out tracking, which is what this whole system is called. It's definitely what the future is, and this is what they should be investing into. If they want to give people the option to use the cameras like people have claimed for on this thing, I'm fine with that. But as far as what they should stick to, it needs to be this. Because no one, if this is going to go mainstream, and I really hope VR does, and it's getting closer and closer with the Quest releasing and all that, inside-out tracking is what it needs to be. No one's going to set up a room where they're going to put up cameras, unless if you're an enthusiast or a hardcore. Setting up cameras and drilling holes into the wall, anything like that, isn't going to happen from the mainstream people. Mainstream people are going to want something like this. Easiest setup. And even people who are in the industry and are enthusiasts, even those people don't want to set up the cameras. Even those people didn't want to go through the hassle before of, you know, if the sensor gets bumped, you have to redo the Guardian and all that stuff. This solves all those problems, and even the people who are out there in the industry are really excited about that. So, inside-out tracking, as far as the tracking goes, compared to the original Rift, is, I would say, 95% as good as what I talked about being 99%. If you play games and you're not looking for like any tracking locks, if you're not specifically trying to make it lose its tracking, you probably won't even ever notice. I hardly ever notice any tracking issues with this. You know, as a Beat Saber player, I play on hard. Just started getting into expert a little bit, but not very much. Mostly on hard. I didn't have any issues on any hard difficulty on Beat Saber songs or any of the games that I played. Obviously, if you take your hand and you just pick up a sword and a shield back here and you whip it out like you're supposed to, you're not going to have any issues because there's some algorithms in there with the sensors and stuff that it knows, hey, if your hand's back here, you obviously are picking up the sword. So it can judge where your hand is probably going to be. But if you obviously take your hand and you leave it behind your back for 30 seconds, obviously it's going to lose tracking because it's like, hey, what's your hand doing back there for 30 seconds? It obviously has no idea what you're doing at that point. So obviously that changes the game if you do that. But, you know, anything up here is pretty easy, especially with that additional camera. But with the algorithms and all that, it can kind of guess where your hands are most of the time. The only issue is, that's actually an issue almost all the time, is when you put the thing right above your face. And that is something I hardly ever do, but I know if you're using a gun stock sometimes with VRs, you hold your gun like this, and if you put it up against your face completely, it's not really going to track very well. But if you just hold it out like this, and it's like a few inches away from it, you're perfectly good. And even the gun stock people who are making, you know, good new gun stocks and stuff for VR have already released models, and they have gotten it to work pretty flawlessly. Like I said, I'd call this 95% as good, where it's almost good and great tracking almost the whole entire time, with a couple of random hitches if you have it right here in front of your face or behind your back sometimes if you leave it back there for a while. But most people won't even notice or care, especially if they didn't have the sensors before. But obviously the sensors, if you have 3 or 4 sensors, it will be very, very slightly better in my experience to what this is. But I don't miss them, and I wanted them out of the house as soon as this was announced. And there's not any game or anything I used to play or is coming out that I'm not going to be able to play just because of this sensor setup. And this is the way that I chose to go forward. So, moving away from the sensors and the easeability of using this and the easeability of setting this up, we're going to go to the one of the negatives on this headset, which is obviously the audio solution. They went with what the Oculus Go uses and what the Quest uses, which is basically built-in audio that's piped down through the strap here and gets fed into your ears. And the quality of sound and the volume of sound is substantially way worse than what the original Rift used to be. No comparison at all with the other built-in headphones that the Rift has. This is nowhere near as good. It's kind of similar to the Go, but there's even some issues that they're apparently updating on here on the Quest and I believe on the Rift S here as well, that they've already come out and said that they're going to raise the volume a little bit, or with some software tweaks that they're going to make the volume a little bit better than what it is right now, because the volume is definitely low on here, even from what I expected. But if you're showing it to friends and you're just passing it around, it makes it a little bit convenient. But obviously the Rift headphones is what they should have went with, but they obviously probably had to cut costs somewhere, and that's where they decided to do it. Luckily, as you can see, I have headphones that look very similar to what the Rift headphones used to look like on the side. These are the Mantis PSVR headphones that came out for the PSVR, which for PSVR owners, buy these. And people who have a Rift, buy the Rift S, buy these as well. These are much, much louder than what's included on here, usually louder than what you need it to be and need to actually lower the volume. It plugs into the headphone jack here. You plug these in, and you're good. You strap them on, and I never take them off. They just stay there. Sure, there's a couple of extra wires that hang a little bit on the side. You can, tighten these up with some Velcro straps and stuff like that. But these are extremely, extremely good. Very close to the quality of what I liked on the original Rift that you now get with these. These are $40, and I think everyone who gets a Rift S needs to buy these because they're great. So that's the negative with the headset. Moving along now to the actual quality of the screen and the lens in there. One of the things, of course, that everyone talked about with this headset is there's no IPD adjustment on here as far as hardware goes. So there's nothing on the bottom to adjust your IPD for how far your eyes are from each other. But it is software-based. I believe it goes from 58 to 72 is what it says it accommodates. My eyes are 67.5. I've never had any issues with the Oculus Go, with the Quest, or with this. Whether it's software-based or hardware-based, I haven't had any issues. So I'm obviously kind of sitting, sort of in the sweet spot where 64 to 65 is usually what the sweet spot is. I'm pretty close to that, and I haven't had any issues or eye strains or anything like that. But something to keep in mind, if you're over that line of spectrum, it may be an issue. You have to try it. It's not always an issue. It just depends on you and your eyes and stuff like that. But for most, it's going to cover a majority of people. And obviously, like I said, I don't have an issue, so I can't really speak to it but I know people want mechanical IPD, and it probably is important. And it is on the Quest. It's just not on this one. But for me in particular, obviously, it doesn't bother me as much because it doesn't bother me in general. But I can see why it would bother other people, so just keep that in mind as well. As far as the screen itself, it did raise in resolution from what the original Rift was. This is now a 2560 by 1080, I believe, resolution on here, and you could definitely tell the quality and step up in the pixel. This is using an LCD screen instead of OLED, so the blacks are a little bit less than what you're used to seeing as far as being perfect, but it's made up with the fact that this screen is much clearer, less SDE, less God rays than what the Rift had, which is important. Field of view is the exact same, but the quality of the screen as far as what you're looking into, the colors are still really good. The quality as far as, like I said, the SDE is reduced. The God rays are significantly reduced, which is nice. It's very comparable to the Oculus Go screen, but even a little bit better because the way that the pixel arrangement is done in here, you get 3 pixels per each one, so it gives you even more clarity, and it's definitely noticeable. If you came from the Rift and you put this on, I immediately noticed that it was a better quality screen, better clarity and all that stuff, and the SDE and the God rays were immediately noticeable to me. So that is one of the reasons why you would probably upgrade from a Rift to this, was obviously the screen, and that's the reason why I did it, especially if you have a smaller room and stuff like that. So this is a good step up in the screen of what the original Rift was. Not exactly what everybody wanted as far as it being a crazy step up, but I think it was still a good good step up regardless for people who have the Rift, and it's definitely going to be noticeable for all you guys. One of the other things to mention on here is obviously the cable itself. You just know that you can extend the cables with a USB 3.0 extension cables and a DisplayPort extension. I'm using a 6-foot one over there. Regular Cable Matters one that I got for the USB, and I forget the other brand or the other one, but any of them should work, and I've extended it 6 feet, no issues with the extension or anything like that. The cable length is 16 feet on this, so if you need more than 16 feet, like I did to cover my whole entire room, that's an option as well. Of course, the controllers are obviously very different than when the original Rift used to be. As you can see, the actual tracking they had to change where the ring went, or before it was underneath your hand, and now it's towards the front. So now you hold the controller like this, and you're using the analog stick and the buttons like that, and the ring is right on top. I haven't had any issues with it. It's still, not just as good of a controller as the original Rift controllers were. I don't miss either one. This is a different way of holding it, and the ring tracking is obviously positioned in a different way, so the cameras can see it better since they're in the front and not the back. But the controllers are really solid. They've been banged up a few times from me hitting my walls already, and they have no scratches in it at all, so that's nice, and they work perfectly. I mean, there's nothing really to complain about the controllers. They're a different style. Some people are going to prefer the original Rift ones compared to this one. I personally wouldn't care either way, and these work perfectly just as good as the original Rift ones did And, you know, I'm satisfied with these controllers perfectly, just like I was completely satisfied with the Rift controllers. So that kind of touches everything on here on the Rift. I think if you have, or in the Rift S here, as far as the game library goes, you guys all know that it's the same library as the Rift, and we got some big exclusives coming out in the next couple of months here with Adgar's Wrath and all those games that are coming out, a long RPG, like 30-hour plus game that everyone's been talking about. And I'm really looking forward to that. And there's going to be some giant Rift games, Rift S games that are on here. Something else to mention that I forgot to mention about the screen, it is an 80 hertz screen, not the 90 hertz that the original Rift has, and I will tell you that I don't notice a difference at all with the lower frame rate. Couldn't tell. So there's not much else for me to say about it because I can't tell anything like that. Even as somebody who has the Quest over there, and that's 72 hertz compared to the 80 on here, I still can't tell. I mean, it's still, when the games are made smooth, the game is still smooth, and that's all there is to it for me. That's not something I noticed. Maybe other people will notice, but I've heard unanimously pretty much everyone I've seen talk about it in the industry said that no one notices it either, and I'm right on board with them, and you can't tell, in my opinion. But guys, I think that covers everything on here. Like I said, the library works with the original Rift library. It's all the same games you had before. All that stuff still works. Anything that comes out for the Rift, obviously, is going to work on both platforms. You still use your Steam VR library. All that stuff is still the same, just the different hardware. And it's $400. It's up to you if you guys can, you know, want to upgrade from the original Rift. For me, it was a very easy decision. I had 4 cameras in here. I didn't want to use the cameras anymore. This makes it a lot easier of a setup. The screen is obviously a little bit better. God rays were a big deal. SDE was a little bit of a big deal for me. And all that stuff has been reduced and better improved upon here. So it was an easy upgrade for me, especially when I took my original Rift. And I sold it for $425 when I sold it when this thing was announced. With those 4 sensors. Sorry, $450 actually with the 4 sensors. So I basically got this paid for in itself. I didn't have to do anything because I had 4 sensors and I sold that as is, and I got this one and it was paid for free. So it was an easy decision for me. Even if you have to put in and sell your original and sell this for $100, and you have to put in $100 of your own money by selling the Rift, it's still worth it to me. Just because of all those improvements that I talked about, with the audio being the only real negative I see with this thing. That I didn't really like, that I obviously had to do my own improvements on, but even that's fixable, even though we shouldn't have to fix it, but it is fixable. So yeah, if you have an original Rift and you're looking to get this, it's definitely an improvement. If you don't have an original Rift and you're brand new to VR and you want to get into PCVR and you're looking to buy a Rift and for some odd reason you're looking at the original Rift versus this one and you're looking to see which one to get, even though this is the one that they're going to be supporting going forward as far as like what's going to be on store shelves and stuff, this is easily the one I recommend. It's so much easier to set up, so much better than having to deal with the cameras and putting them around the room in a perfect spot, drilling holes into your wall. 2 simple cables go in there. Don't have to worry about people having USB ports, enough USB ports, and taking up the USB bandwidth and all those problems that we had before. Just get the Rift S. If you never had a Rift, in my opinion, it's well worth it at that point. And for original Rift people, it's still worth it. I wouldn't say it's worth it if you couldn't sell your original at all, and you were going to put in the full $400 all over again. That's probably not worth the price at that point. But if you could sell your original Rift for a pretty good substantial price and upgrade to this one, I think you guys are going to be nicely pleased with how it works. And I don't think majority of you, unless if you're a hardcore FPS person that really wants those gun stocks where 100% perfectly in front of your face, maybe those people should try it first and see how it works for them. Because I'm not really that hardcore. I don't even have a stock yet, even though I want to get one and try because a lot of people have been talking about it. So I may showcase that in the channel here soon. But maybe those people are the ones that have to have reservations and check a little bit more. But everyone else, you know, the 95% of the population is going to be really happy with this thing and the tracking and all that stuff. And guys, that is our Oculus Rift S review on this. It's an outstanding device. It's a nice step forward is what I would say about it. But not a giant leap forward. Nice step forward. So, if you guys have any questions about anything I talked about in this video, as always, leave it down below. If not, thank you guys for watching. Till next time.
Tech, gaming techie is the gaming tech, gaming techie, gaming tech. Eating brekkie is the gaming tech, going for a recce is the gaming tech, gaming techie is the gaming tech, gaming techie.